was a horrible way to end the series. Chicago White Sox were crushed by the Los Angeles Angels 12-5. Lance Lynn had a miserable outing, throwing non-competitive pitches to a couple of the best hitters on the planet, and he was lit up. The White Sox finished off the month of May with a better record than April, but that means very little at this point.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Sox fans, welcome back to Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen each and every day. We're free and available on all platforms. Follow us on Twitter at Locked On Sox. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search Locked On White Sox. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Hey, I'm your host, Nick Morawski, a lifelong, die-hard Chicago White Sox fan, recording this podcast just blocks from the ballpark in beautiful Bridgeport. You can find me on Twitter at Nick_GGTV. Locked On White Sox is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The White Sox take on the Detroit Tigers on Friday on the South Side. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search a White Sox. State of the Sox, not good. They are now 23-35, running out of new things to say about this team. It's the same old dejecting stuff. What a clunker on Wednesday. And that's to put it nicely on the series finale Wednesday afternoon at 35th and Shields. White Sox Angels. It was finished rather early in this one. A day game after a night game that saw the White Sox explode offensively. You guessed it. Very little offense. It was an ugly game. Sox lost 12-5. They finished May, the easy part of this schedule, mind you, a mediocre 15-14. Angels hit 5 home runs on Wednesday. This was from Chris Kamka of NBC Sports Chicago. White Sox have been out-homered 49-31 at home this season. That should never happen. You should be building a team that hits home runs at a very home run friendly park, your home park. And maybe they tried, maybe they absolutely tried, and it is just not happening. I mean, talk about underperforming. I mean, up and down that roster, and guys that are performing, you're like, where did that come from? We didn't expect it from that guy. Can you imagine if everybody else was clicking, the ones that were supposed to be, this core, this lineup? Unreal. So what kind of game was it? Well, Jake Burger finally played second base. It was that kind of game. Trout and Ohtani were an absolute force. Lance Lynn looked like James Shields with a splash of Dallas Keuchel 2022 and an end-of-the-line John Danks. Sox, they've been traveling by way of Romy Gonzalez these days, and Romy was 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts. Prior to Tuesday's win, this is Pedro Grifol. It feels really good to have our whole team back together for the first time. Now we've just got to put it all together and go play baseball we're capable of playing and live up to the expectations we have as a team. It's time to go out there and win some games. How many times have we been hearing those types of words and that language from Grifol? Wow. Post-game, after this was after Tuesday's game regarding Romy Gonzalez. Romy's extremely talented, Grifol said. He's got all 5 tools. There's some things that he's got to work on, obviously, just like every player and all of us. But when he puts it all together, he can beat you in a lot of ways, and he showed it on Tuesday night. He keeps hitting home runs. He's going to find himself somewhere to play every day, Grifol said after that game. So it sounds like when he was asked in terms of Grifol being asked about the whole Elvis Andrus, Romy Gonzalez, what's going to happen with that situation when Andrus comes back, and basically Pedro Grifol kind of answered with, well, we're going to go with, the hot hand. And so my question is, how does that work? If Romy Gonzalez, okay, maybe this was a blip, this 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts, and he gets right back to it, and he's probably maybe an upgrade at defense. He's got a little bit more pop for sure in his bat, and has been on a roll because he's been getting consistent playing time. How, are you going to pause Romy and then check out to see what Elvis Andrus can do to see if he can also get hot? Like, I don't understand that. I think you just keep playing Romy Gonzalez and you use maybe Elvis Andrus as a backup. Hanser Alberto's the guy that I just don't know what happens with this guy. He can produce in limited moments, but I don't think he's the future. But then again, Elvis Andrus isn't the future. I didn't think Romy Gonzalez was going to be the future, but here he is. You might as well go with this guy for the time being. We'll see. This was Giolito after his recent outing. I didn't pitch well enough to deserve a win next to my name. Gio said, the real story is that the offense did such a wonderful job picking me up. The first inning, I gave up a run, put us in a hole. They immediately answer back, tie it up. It's a brand new game. The fourth inning, I give up 2, and then they immediately answer back. They prevented shutdown innings from happening twice, which gets the momentum directly back to our side. So all the credit to them. They prevented things from happening twice, which gets the momentum right back to us. They did their thing, and I was able to kind of grind through 5 innings. And I mentioned it on the previous episode. It just was not a very good outing by Giolito. He settled down, but he didn't have great stuff. But it was masked by the way the offense performed. I mean, they were clicking. It was fun on Tuesday. And I just worried, with that offensive explosion Tuesday night, here we are, day game Wednesday. They were going to be silenced, and they pretty much were for majority of the game. Third baseman Yoan Moncada was in some discomfort during his last bat on Tuesday, and Grifol suggested he won't start in the series finale on Wednesday. However, he was in the starting lineup. This is what Grifol said. He loves to play the game, and he's not afraid to play hurt. He's not afraid to play with pain. Said Grifol of Moncada. There's times where his back really grabs, and there's times when he feels really good. Yesterday, he was at first base, and he scored from first in 11.1 seconds. Some TWTW. And if you're, a Sox fan from a while back with Hawk Harrelson, he used to use that phrase quite a bit on the telecast. The will to win. TWTW. Maybe Moncada's got some of that. I didn't think he did. He's been having some issues with health over the last several years. He seems to grind through it, though, playing in games maybe that he shouldn't. I don't know. There are times where he kind of looks like he's made of glass and he gets shut down. So, hey, if Grifol says it, well, it's got to be true. On Wednesday, Moncada 1 for 3 with 2 strikeouts. Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani ran wild on Lance Lynn and the White Sox. It was a bad game and a disappointing way to end the series. More on that in a moment. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Hey, buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Game Time is the place for last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. The game time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. The White Sox face off against the Tigers on Friday. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. Sox were crushed, actually, by the Halos 12-5 on Wednesday. This was the series finale lineup for the White Sox. Tim Anderson still at the top despite his numbers. I just don't think Pedro Grifol is ever going to move Tim Anderson for the top, but boy, is he struggling since coming back from that knee injury. Benintendi back in that 2 spot because there was a righty on the mound. Then Robert Jimenez at DH, Moncada, the Warrior, TWTW back out there, Vaughn, Grandal, Sheets in right field, and then Romy Gonzalez. This was what I was reading before the game from The Athletic, Jim Bowden's latest power rankings, and this is what he had to say about our White Sox. Even the deep dish pizza isn't tasting good on the south side of Chicago this year. I love when national pundits and national writers comment about Chicago, and they always go to deep dish, where I'm telling you, in my opinion, I have deep dish maybe twice a year, maybe once. It's tavern style pizza. And again, if you're looking for just the best pizza in Chicago, Phil's on 35th Street, that is where you go. Back to Bowden's analogies about deep dish and Chicago. It's another disappointing season for the Sox. Once again, this team looks a lot better on paper than in the win-loss column. The White Sox must hope that their rotation of Dylan Cease, Lance Lynn, Lucas Giolito, and Michael Kopech can get on a roll, and that Liam Hendricks can look like the closer he was the past 2 seasons, and that Luis Robert Jr., Eloy Jimenez, and Tim Anderson can stay healthy for an extended stretch. That it, Jim? Anything else? Early trade deadline take from Jim Bowden of The Athletic. If the White Sox don't turn it around in the next 2 months, they could be the headliner at the trade deadline. With starting pitching, an impact closer, a shortstop, and power bats they could trade. They could consider everything from a fire sale to a complete rebuild to just a significant reboot. No matter how it plays out, they'll be a fascinating team to watch if they don't start making up ground. Bowden's definition of fascinating is different from mine, but I get where he's coming from. Rick Hahn very well might be a busy man come trade deadline, and that to me is a scary thing. White Sox got manhandled by Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, and the Los Angeles Angels on Wednesday. Rough day for Lance Lynn, to say the least. He gave up 8 runs, 6 of them on a trio of 2-run homers by Trout and Ohtani, 8 hits, 2 walks, 2 hit batters. His ERA 6.55, second highest among qualified starting pitchers in baseball. That was from Vinny Duber of CHGO. Lynn's post-game comments. Here we go. It's going to be June. You don't win games just because of talent. So we've got to figure out how to be better day in and day out. I know it starts with pitching. And right now, after this series, we have to right the ship as starters. We didn't do our job this series. You give up 6 runs on 3 swings. Lynn said that just can't happen, especially the 2 guys that did it. Those are guys you can't let beat you. And today I let the offense in too big of a hole. I've got to be better. I've got to be more efficient. I've got to make better pitches and get some outs there. Hey, he's saying the right things, but can he get better? Can the White Sox be better? I don't know. I don't have a lot of confidence in Lance Lynn to be consistently better. We've seen glimpses from the starting rotation. I mean, they put it together for a stretch there, as did the bullpen. I mean, that was what was giving me hope as the Sox started to play better, a little more fun going on within the team. The results were better. Well, the pitching was there. The bullpen was locked down. And, when you're falling back off now as a starting staff and the offense isn't quite there on a day in, night in basis, wow, you're going to have some problems. Bullpen for the White Sox, it was Schultens and Crochet. They covered 5 innings on Wednesday, 5 hits, 4 earned runs, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. They each gave up a home run. Sox offense, 5 runs, 12 hits. They scored 3 runs in the 9th, 4 extra base hits. You had a home run from Jake Berger, doubles from Anderson, Vaughn, Alberto, and Jimenez. Sox were 2 for 9 with runners in scoring position. And speaking of Eloy Jimenez, Pedro Grifol acknowledged Eloy Jimenez was limited by a leg issue, but said he expects him to be able to play the outfield this weekend. So he was again in right field for, I think, his entire comeback, and then he DH'd on Wednesday. Just a reminder that Eloy Jimenez is really not an outfielder. He should be your designated hitter, but there is a logjam of all different sorts for outfield, DH, and Eloy Jimenez hates DHing and wants to be an outfielder, and just kind of stomped his feet, crossed his arms, and the White Sox are going to forego any defense and maybe even the health of Eloy Jimenez, and probably going to keep putting him out there in right field. So we'll see how this all plays out if he does get out there against Detroit this coming weekend. But again, he was supposed to be resting his legs while he was healing from the appendectomy. So maybe this day off will get those legs right on Thursday. More Pedro Grifol in the post game. As a matter of fact, if you don't regroup and come back with some energy on Friday, this thing can linger on. So it's our responsibility to make sure we nip this in the bud and get back to work and bring some energy against Detroit and hopefully win a series. We're not going to let it linger on. I'm not going to let it. I just don't think we've clicked as a team yet. I don't think we've come close to clicking as a team, Grifol said. Why that is, I'm not sure. So that's a scary thought right there. One, you could bring all the energy you want. You could be drinking energy drinks in the dugout while bringing the energy, and sometimes you just don't have it. I mean, it's a talent situation in my mind right now. I don't know why they're underperforming. I don't think it's a lack of energy. I don't know if it's maybe a lack of focus. They're not prepared. They weren't prepared. They're not buying into whatever Grifol and his coaching staff are trying to pitch and sell. The whole comment about Grifol not sure why the team's not clicking, that's big to me. I thought there was, I don't know if he's talking about chemistry, if he's talking about talent clicking and taking off like they should be taking off. At the end of the day, you've got to say, okay, what are we waiting for now with some of these guys? They have shown us who they are after a few seasons now. We've got a sample size. Maybe they just can't do what we want them to do and what we were told they could do by all the scouts and pundits all over the place saying, this guy is going to be just, a generational talent. And this guy is going to be right up there in the MVP conversation year after year. This guy is going to be in the Cy Young conversation. Maybe they just aren't. Maybe they're just not that good. They're not doing what they were allegedly supposed to do because they can't. And we're waiting for this to all of a sudden take off while the guys that we didn't really think about too much, Romy Gonzalez, Jake Berger, even Gavin Sheets, those are the ones that are having, some amazing couple of months in their respect. I didn't expect much from Romy Gonzalez or Jake Berger. And these are the guys we keep talking about, week after week, series after series. So I don't know how Grifol figures that out, but after 2 months, that's concerning for me as a Sox fan, and it should be for everybody else. This was Daryl Van Schouwen, Chicago Sun-Times. He had the write-up. Sox finished 15-14 in May after going 8-21 in March and April. Even short stretches of good have been hard to come by for a team that hasn't won more than 3 games in a row. 2 months in, and they're still searching for answers. Look, the Sox are what their record says. Inconsistent, underperforming, underprepared, mediocre at times, lacking depth, and struggling with health. Just scratching their head, searching for answers. Why is this happening? Coming from allegedly Jerry Reinsdorf, Rick Hahn, Pedro Grifol, fans everywhere, most likely internally, the players looking around just like, how did we get here? What is going on? And I don't know, how we turn that around. And if that's really the serious thing that's being said, wow, then I don't know where this White Sox team goes, because it is going to get difficult. I mean, the month of May, it's in the books. Sox improved, but it does not feel like they're heading in the right direction. And June will definitely be a test. More on that in a moment. So the White Sox have an off day on Thursday. They welcome the Detroit Tigers for a 3-game series, a team that we lost 3 of 4 to last weekend. New month, better results. I mean, is that possible for this White Sox team? After the Tigers, the Sox have 3 with the Yankees in New York, and then they've got 3 with the Marlins. And then you travel out west to see the LA Dodgers in Seattle, Texas and Boston at home, then back out west against the Angels and Oakland. And you're probably saying to yourself, well, at least we finished the month against Oakland. No offense to the Oakland Athletic fans out there, but that's, I think, what we're all looking at. It's like, well, we've got that Oakland series, but that's a rough month. It really is. And traditionally, the Sox have had problems out west. Dodgers, Seattle, and then Angels, Oakland. Texas is playing really well. I mean, Boston is probably not where they want to be division-wise, but, again, when you are a couple games over 500 in the AL East, you're going to be in the cellar, because how difficult that division is. So Sox have 3 off days in June and a lot of ground to make up. Again, you're looking at your division. Even though Grifol doesn't admit that he's looking at games back and all that stuff, everybody has a good idea. They know where they're at. They're 12 games under 500. So maybe that's your first test is how do I claw myself out of that hole? And then you're also saying, well, where am I at in the AL Central? And I think that plays into the trade deadline talk. Okay. And, they're not going to buy. I just don't see this team buying to get beyond the AL Central to make a run to make a serious run in postseason play. I don't even know if they're going to be in that conversation by trade deadline to feel good about the AL Central with this June and July coming up and what I have seen recently. So if you're playing for the AL Central, maybe you just stay on pat and you're just, hey, hope that everybody keeps staying healthy. We got a division to win here. We think we can win it with these guys. But if you're at a number of games out, I don't know what that number is for Rick Hahn and the White Sox front office, and you're at a certain number back of the AL Central, you absolutely have to start selling. You need to get stuff for Giolito. Maybe Mike Clevenger. People will call about Dylan Cease, but you have to demand a haul. And that's if these guys are performing, if they're clicking. I mean, Tim Anderson, with the rate he's going, what are we going to get for Tim Anderson? We've got he's under control for a little bit, I guess, but maybe an LA Dodgers team sees some real potential. They're like, I think he just needs a change of atmosphere. He needs a fresh start. We absolutely want a guy like Tim Anderson on our team. We need a shortstop. I like what he could do at the leadoff spot. These are all things that will probably become clearer in the next month or so. But those calls are coming in to Hahn right now. Just, hey, keep me and my team in mind. Keep us in mind. We know what's going on over there on the South Side, and where you might be at, and we want to do business with the White Sox. Rick Hahn's the guy that's going to be making these decisions, it looks like. I don't trust him, but that's all we've got at this point. We've got a mailbag Friday episode. We got some conversation and questions about the catching situation, player development, what players maybe to build around if the Sox are selling. Get any questions and comments you have at lockedonsox@gmail.com by Thursday afternoon. Try to get that into Friday's episode. Thank you so very much for making this podcast part of your daily routine. You can find the Locked On White Sox podcast absolutely everywhere you find your podcasts. We're on Twitter at Locked On Sox. You can find me on Twitter at Nick_GGTB. White Sox take on the Tigers on Friday on the South Side. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. Thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. Hey, everydayers, on the next episode, I will get to your questions, get you ready for that 3-game series with the Tigers as well. Appreciate you making time for the Locked On White Sox podcast. I'm Nick Morawski. Until next time, go Sox.